public talk hosted by the Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra. My name's Rachel O'Rourke and I'm one of the committee members of the Society. I'd like to acknowledge the first people of the land where we meet today, the Ngunnawal people, and pay respects to the elders past, present and future, and also extend a welcome to any Indigenous people here today. For those of you who haven't been to this venue before, there are toilets just through that opening there on your left, and we have some jugs of water just over here if anyone would like some water. So you might have noticed the model as you came in, just on the table here. This is our new centre that we're planning to build in Canberra. We've been granted some community land by the ACT government this year, and it's been a long-held vision of the Society to have our own Tibetan Buddhist temple here in Canberra. We have been renting our premises at Evatt for over 20 years, and it's time the Society's decided to build our own centre, so we just wanted to share that with you tonight. And if you'd like more information about it, we have some flyers, or you can come and talk to one of us about it at the end of the talk. Because we're in the planning and planning to build early next year, we are looking for volunteers to help with that building phase, so if anyone's got any skills, please come and talk to us. As well, we are seeking donations so that it all goes towards the temple, and it's tax deductible, so please, if you can, we appreciate your assistance with that. So going back to our talk for this evening, our resident teacher and spiritual director of the Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra is Lama Choedak Rinpoche here. And he started the Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra over 25 years ago. He's been teaching regularly in Canberra all those years. We like to think of him as a hidden gem because some people don't even know, but he's still teaching. So every Tuesday evening at our centre in Evatt, he takes meditation classes and Buddhist teaching classes. So if you haven't come along to one of those, I really encourage you to, because Rinpoche has a wealth of knowledge. He was born in Tibet, and while living in exile in Nepal was a monk for over 12 years, and part of that time he completed a solitary 3.5-year meditation retreat. And then since coming to the West to live in Australia, he started the Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra, as well as many sister centres around Australia and New Zealand. So Rinpoche travels most weekends around Australia to teach at those other centres, and occasionally as well he teaches in Canberra and at Marupa Retreat Centre in Kawula. So Rinpoche will be talking the talk tonight, and as he will mention, with our new temple, as well as holding the meditation and Buddhist teachings classes at our new temple, Rinpoche's vision and the Society's vision is also to have an array of programs at the new centre that will benefit the whole community. So programs that address issues such as drug and alcohol abuse, mental illness, violence, alienation, all these kind of issues that are part of our society and times. We will be holding a number of programs, so that's why this topic this evening on preventing suicide in society is along those lines, because we know that the Buddhist teachings are so relevant to any time, and to address these issues. So I will pass over to Rinpoche to expertly explain that. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you, Rachel. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here, and particularly the Tibetan Buddhist Society for hosting this event at these venues so that most people who can't go into the suburbs to find the center can actually discover these teachings and meet our community and our activities. This topic and talks are designed to outreach the larger community that various faith groups otherwise do not reach, because people think it's for that ethnic group or that culture group, and usually that seems to be so. But I think time is well overdue to stay like that in your own little culture and ethnic groups. But rather to come out and share the values and teachings and things that really may have a greater common good that all can share. So, as Rachel mentioned, that we have been, our organization have been here nearly 30 years, and we know that the more we become part of the wider community, the more we know that we have to break the boundaries and try to consolidate the oneness of the family as a whole people, not divided by language, culture, since our sufferings and problems are the same. If any effective remedies are there to prevent, to treat at all, they should be shared. And any particular culturally unique or ethnically unique that people may have, of course, that would be treasure too. But there's much greater good that all the people in different groups have to share, particularly a very tolerant society like that we have in Australia. So I rejoice my homemaking in Australia for all these years, that everywhere I travel, and I know how racial, how racist, how intolerant people are in their own group. And Australia is far more liberal and educated and well-mannered. But nevertheless, every developing countries and developed country in which Australia is among the top 10 have a lot of problems and sufferings. Suffering of death is inalienable part of birth. Everyone who is born will have to face death, but most would like to extend at all costs. By hook or crook, they would like to live long, and they will try to save anyone who is in danger of losing their life, even in the late, an old age. We would like to save them from dying prematurely or unnaturally. And all our professional trainings in medicines and science and technology, all are directed towards supporting that life. That's the very thing that's precious. If anything is precious, it's only because we have a life. Your wealth, your education, your family, your skills, anything you have is only useful if we are there to offer and being able to extend that to others. So it is very central teaching of Buddhism to respect all living beings. As we cherish our life, then everyone else's life is also precious to them, and so to unnaturally cause the ending of life that is so precious is abhorrent in Buddhist teachings. I'm not going to offer here tonight so much about a discourse on the rights and wrongs of suicide yet, but we know how much suffering it must be for someone to decide to take their life. Are there things that society at large can do to minimize such sufferings that leads people to decide to take their lives? I think there are plenty. The suicide prevention people may identify few behavior patterns of the individual who's planning to commit suicide, but those are not really causes of the death. Causes of the committing suicide may be drug overdose or hanging or whatever we may call it, but there's a lot more distant causes of death. We often identify the near cause of death, what exactly happened that made the person to end his life, whether he hanged or whether he jumped off the cliff or whatever, you know. So we're talking about how each and every unit of human existence can behave in a way that we do not contribute each other's likelihood of scheming to or planning to commit suicide. Why do somebody actually reach to the point of wanting to end their life in the first place? They must have so much suffering that they could not find any way to handle by unmentionable number of things that has been piling up in their life, that all avenues are blocked. And therefore they see their own, maybe their loved ones suffering so much that they couldn't, that living anymore is more of a cause of suffering, shame, and embarrassment, loss of face, loss of dignity, and they think they might be blamed. They may be the one to blame for all the things their loved ones have been nagging and complaining and putting pressures on. And we don't realize how smallest things we do towards the way we speak to each other are actually putting pressure on each other so much that this could become one of the distant cause of suicide. So my talk really is not about of suicide, but about how to practice kindness. Right from day one, particularly within our own families, so that parents or teachers or those who are peer or those are brothers, sisters, or whoever they are, that whatever the mistakes or hurdles or failures individuals might have in our midst, we have to be kind to support them, rather than as if they're not good, as they are not good enough, as if they failed, as if they failed many times. They will never do it good, nagging, giving a lot of parental care, money, education, but still saying the very poisonous things that almost kills the spirit. Dictatorial parenting. As if I'm the boss of the family, you do as I say, and almost have no feeling of consequences of what they say to the minds of the little ones. How will they take what they treat us? They will look up to us, but they think, yes, I must be stupid, because she calls me stupid. I'm not good, because she says me I'm not good. And all these unthoughtful words that lacks conscience, compassion, that has no idea how it will hurt their spirit and esteem and confidence, and yet we put pressure how much they should perform to become free and independent and not become a burden. in this competitive, individualistic society, we seem to be creating the distant causes of suicide. So my talk is about calling people how best to go back in a home life and try to change the way we talk to each other, when we talk to the particularly young, even talk between adults, because young are exposed to that environment of verbal abuse, negative language, nagging, condescending, criticizing, and as if they're not as good as their other classmate, and pushing as if they have to be top 10 in the class. If not, they're not good. It's very materialistic, aggressive, greedy, competitive kind of mentality in society is actually unconsciously making the people to say the words that are so hurtful. These are basically violence we're talking about. People who commit suicide has been exposed to violence. This peer pressure and dictatorial parenting and saying very unrespectful, uncaring, uncompassionate, condescending, negative, critical words are killing the spirit. They've been killed many times. Their emotional spirit has been where some unconscious parent or loved ones actually speak to each other or speak to the children directly. So, therefore, we have to practice to prevent such pain and hurt and demoralizing feeling. One has to do the exact opposite. To practice kindness, live kindly at home, and mind one's body and speech and the behavior of that in front of the young as well as to the young. And because of the individualistic and competitive materialistic environment we live in, not that we have to, but everyone seems to be subscribing to become independent. According to Buddhism, there is no independence. We're all dependent. We're totally dependent. So what if we use kind words? It will be not only good for us to say that kind words, but those who hear it and overhear it, they will be benefited by it. If we use unkind and hurtful words, not only it is bad for us to use such hurtful words, but it will directly hurt the morale and dignity and confidence of the other person. And others who overhear it will also be affected. This is very negative kind of behavior for individuals who have zero tolerance. We have to practice tolerance and behave tolerantly by not using very harsh, condescending, negative words. So, practicing kindness really means how do we not say the thing we think we want to say, but yet get the message across. Often people they are really hard on the person, soft on the problem. The problem never gets solved, the person gets hurt. Parents actually want the children to improve their study. But how do we say it without hurting their pride and confidence and self-esteem? And often people aren't aware that the use of the words that they are making is the very least respected and expected by anyone, let alone their own loved ones. They don't feel loved, they feel controlled, they feel abused, they feel judged, they feel criticized. And if they get criticized once, it's bad enough. But if many times, day in, day out. And no wonder why people can't live under one roof. Because it's not because they don't have enough blankets, not because they haven't got enough beds. They actually got empty rooms, empty beds. But people are too arrogant and individualistic and egotistical. They don't think of the other first. They always think of them first. So we have to change the language. First person should be last person. So we should say, last person is self, and others are first person. Whoever is the other is the first person. I don't know whether there should be any second or third person. And so if we think of that, then it's a selfless and not selfish. The person who is speaking selfishly and egotistically, unfortunately, does not do so intentionally. He's unconscious, he's saying that way. He's not aware he's saying language or words that will hurt the mind of the other person and sound very controlling, sound very dictatorial. They don't think like that. But on the other side, when one is in the other shoes, when they're listening from the other shoes, it exactly sound that. So we have to grow up to think, if I say this to this person who's first person, we have to be in their shoes, because we've been used to being first person, so we at least should know that. So what would be the first person would hear? First person in their shoes would hear if I spoke to him or her like that. And the issue and the problem about which is very, very minor. We have a saying in Tibetan, to kill a lice, you don't need an axe. Not that we are saying you should kill lice. Yeah, people using way too much exceeding and inappropriate words for very small issues. But as I said, the person is not conscious. It is sounding like that in the ears of the other, because he's not thinking what would be the person in that shoes would be hearing. He's not being able to put himself in other person's position. Quite a lot of young kids leave home. They can't wait to leave home. If they can leave before 16, 18, they will, because if they have a very, very abusive household, where the two adults and other adults are speaking very harsh words, very, very disrespectful, very, very discourteous, very unkind to words, almost like competing against each other. There's no love, there's no tenderness, there's no care, there's no apologizing, there's no caregiving thing, and they get really exposed. They don't like that whole environment. So we're talking about how to prevent suicide is how to create a living situation where one try to mind those negative thoughts and not let they become outputted in words and deeds, and try to restrain that such words and such manner or behavior will have a negative impact through the young minds. What we're talking about, how to create a loving environment, how to create a very forgiving and compassionate and tender and loving environment. Even if someone does make a mistake, we don't try to denigrate and bring them down to make them feel guilty, as they have not only felt themselves, they felt me and everyone else. Of course, implanting guilt in someone else is very heavier than killing themselves. Why are people who are attempting to kill themselves? Because they have been killed. Their spirit has been killed many times by such sort of unthoughtful, provocative, negative, abusive, violent words. So we're talking about how, because this is more like, because committing suicide, such in Australia, I'm told statistically, at least 9 people every day. That's more than gun violence. We're trying to stop gun legally. Why can't we stop suicide? The people who use it have quite a lot of people might have firearms, but they're not firing and killing each other as much as people taking their own lives. So we've become outwardly much more civilized society. We have nice roads, we have nice pavements, we have nice front doors, and very nice living rooms, and so on. But the people living in them are very egotistical and have very little patience for each other, very little tolerance, and very little compassion for one who is a little bit different, a little bit different. And if someone is a little bit different in the family, we think they are dependent to me. They might burden our attitudes. In traditional society, it's an honor to give full love and care to someone in their family, particularly they're different due to their health or due to the intellectual, whatever. They never call them dependent. So we have to almost change the cultural way of thinking by almost reinventing how to use our language to describe the people in the family. It's I'm the breadwinner. People say I'm the breadwinner. Other person been working just as much at home, but she's not breadwinner. The 3 or 4 others are just like burdens. That kind of attitude. They don't have a feeling that we are one. We are one family, and so someone who is a little bit different. They call it a little bit different because you can't use the word disability. It's a very condescending word. A little bit different, And if this person actually have more suffering than they themselves would like to have, they're maybe karmically they have born with such illnesses, such disabilities, such difficulties. Yet we ourselves have some kind of destiny to have them amidst our family. And even we don't have one in our own family, you might be a specialist to care for a disabled person. See, we are all actually trained to help everyone. But not just nice medication, not nice hospital bed, not just nice things, but humanely love and kindness probably must be a shortfall. And that's why quite a lot of people are not getting kindness, respect, tolerance, forgiveness, and support. They're judged. They're almost ostracized. They almost feel as they are a bit of a burden. One may not specifically use those words, but the way the person speaks, even from our body language, if someone looks at each other with very tender, loving, kind attention towards them, not because they cheer up, they do everything, they're good books, but even when they blunder a few things, but still with that love, still with that unconditional compassion. We need to learn how to do that, because when they do blunder or make few mistakes, if then they become very intolerant, they think that's the end of the world, and they're unlike other kids, and they make too many mistakes, you will never get it right. Never get it right. It's very condescending. And it really sits there like a bullet in their heart. Now, how many of that bullet they need? They probably try to live. If possible, they would like to cope with the suffering. Hopefully someone will not say like that anymore. Treat them like that anymore. Look at them like them anymore. Now, we're talking about how to reverse that. Apologize. I'm sorry I was not myself. I shouldn't have said such things to you. I love you, my dear. I shouldn't have said this. I have so much. It wasn't really myself, It should be straight away apologize to the young or to the old, right in front of everybody. It's a very good thing to do, Then they know, it's possible. That it's possible then we're real friends. Then they really trust us. Otherwise they can't feel they have anyone. They have many, but they feel lonely. They say, alone with many. When nobody has this consider empathy towards each other, don't practice kindness, and treat them with kind of indifference and with kind of negative words and put a stigma on each other. He's violent, he's alcoholic, that kind of names people give to each other, and then even try to make the whole rest of the community know, yeah, this person is such and such. It's putting the stigma on the person, denigrating their whole morale. Is worse than going in hell. I mean, hell, at least you don't go unless you believe in them. Even if you believe in them, I'm told there's a side door you can run away. You can tell God, I believe in you. God might say, okay, in that case you come over here. God will pardon you if you believe in that sort of thing. You know, we are much more intelligent than that these days. No trouble. The hell is making people feel abused and demoralized and denigrated and put down, you know, and bullying. These things are distant, if not near, causes of suicide. Well, immediately before committing suicide, they may turn to drug, they may turn to alcoholism, they may turn to depression, and so on and so forth. But what are the distant causes of them leading to that? Some people say history in the family, there's suicide history in the family. All these things are just modern behavioral statistics students talk about that. People who understand suffering and life and the causes of suffering tells that it comes from ego, egotistical mind, and greed, and selfishness. Now, if one is exposed to an adult who behaves like that, and who's selfless, who's like actually all the outward care and giving of the children and upbringing, you can see most parents do, even animals do them very well. So it's not that human beings are not conscious what to give care outwardly, because society will shun them if they don't. But that's not love. You know? Everybody can, someone will easily give you a roof over your head without being a parent, a biological parent. And education. In some countries, it's free education, free medicine. Basically, everything is free, you know. So we have to see what's the karma of being in one family. What is our karmic responsibility to them, even if they are not like the elder brother or younger sister or whatever? How do we still respect them so that they don't feel put down and looked down and treated as they're a failure, they're not good enough? You know, when we talk and treat each other that way, it makes them feel like they're not worthy. They're not worthy even to themselves, because it looks like they're not worthy to their mom or dad or others who treat them with some kind of contempt. So, therefore, the question is how to everybody just look at themselves. What kind of consequences there are if I spoke to this person like this? What is the alternative, and can I say to the person so that they don't feel judged and put down and looked down and treated them that they're not good and they always make mistakes and make them feel they're always like that? How do we use supportive words? That's perfectly okay, you know. They are completely allowed to be different, you know. A lot of positive psychology nowadays are starting to think we have used so much negative psychology and not learning to predispose a kind of mentality that our mentality that is outputted in words and deeds and even in our manner, our kind of body language has an effect to others. So this is really calling on the humanity in everyone that actually assist people so that the people who have sort of early signs of endangering their life
actually do receive good care and understanding and compassion, not sort of stigmatize them yet with another condition. It is the stigmatizing of a condition as if that is their fault. Again, they think that's their fault. Sure, we all go through various conditions. Condition, by definition, is impermanent. You buy a hair conditioner to decondition your hair, isn't it? not to keep the hair all the same. So the certain medical conditions there, but giving very, very, I would say, definitive diagnosis, which might be quite inaccurate, because a lot of the mental illnesses are very, very early stages of study. And suppressing the behavior of individuals whose mind need to be cheered up, they need to be respected, they need to be included, they need to be given the medicine of kindness and respect. Right from the very early stages. When people become exposed to the opposite, the poison of condescending and nagging and put downs and criticizing and always telling if they are not good enough and you never do it right. When people hear these things, these are the poisons. These are the conditioners. These are the conditioners. We call them poisons. One who speaks egotistically negative words, his negative words become poisons. It implants seed in the ears of whoever hears it, and they become really affected by negative conversations. And then they also think it's okay to use such words. We live in a civilized world. Nobody's into mind. It's called freedom of speech or something. It's worse still, freedom, remember? Yeah, free to poison each other. Without any mindfulness minding their speech. We are minding our outer behavior in the street, not to litter not even drop a small piece of paper on the pavement, You want to look so neat and clean, on the street, but inside, who is whipping? Who's whipping the mind? Who's looking after the hygiene of the mind? We become completely materially focused on how to look clean and neat and nice outwardly. Deep down, we have no understanding of human mind and its negative, destructive emotions, and then when they're output. Why they call it destructive emotions? They're not destructive just to the individuals. The one who with egotistical, anger, aggressive, and a kind of dictatorial person who or he or she is, when they say such words, it destroys. It is destructive to the little ears, even to the adult ears. It's enough. Can you work under someone who's very verbally abusive, condescending, put down? Maybe you have a good certificate. Maybe you have the certificate, he hasn't. He just happened to be working there 20 years earlier than you, that's all he is. But education, he hasn't got the degree, and he hasn't actually got the skill to speak with respect. These are the destructive emotional consequences we're talking about. The suicide is a destructive emotional output that is used without any sense of responsibility. Of course, nowadays there is a little bit of awareness of the verbal violence at work environment and so on, but how about home? How about domestic? How about your everyday life? How do you speak to your children? And if the two adults do not speak with respect, and even if they sometimes lose their temper and say or do something not quite acceptable, if they see quickly one of them go and apologize, if kids see that, it's not destructive, is it? They think it's mendable. He said, oh, I saw them arguing, but they were, all of a sudden they were apologizing and they were patching it up. And actually they are so apologizing to children for them having to make them become exposed to such things. If the kids got to see this very often, they wouldn't be destroyed by these, because human beings do that. But it's even more humane to repair them. But if they don't see, if they are only exposed to the damaging and destructive, exchanges, but they don't see any of the repairing exchanges. If they have that, I'm sure the kids will know, oh, my mom and dad hardly uses abusive words. Even if one of them do, they quickly patch up. And they quickly apologize. And when they get used to that, of course, less likely one of the two will speak like that to the young. These are very small lives, and if they see violence, they tremble. They just couldn't handle. Just look at the body language is too much for them. Some are traumatized by the exposure to the violence, verbal violence, and all the roughness that people show at home. There's no sense. There doesn't seem to be any humility. They don't seem to have any tolerance. They don't seem to have any compassion for each other. It's all about who's right, who's wrong. It's not about how to be kind to each other. If the society and individuals in society say, how do we prevent some of the major problems in society? Alcoholism, drug, suicide, and all these things are just like a sign of a sign of a dysfunctional society, where people are almost like people can't wait to turn to 18 so they can go and drink. They shouldn't be allowed to drink any time, really. If you really have some real good control, such habits of drinking alcohol too much is already, if they see them parents drinking all the time, they say, we can do that thing too, And only legally they're not allowed to buy, but they're allowed to drink, maybe somewhere else, because it looks like it's okay to drink. Because they're so exposed to in a culture to drink early, smoke cigarette, and all of that, and use very aggressive words and harmful words, and they all think they're equal or something. Equal isn't better, if there's no respect for the other. Equal means competitive. This competitiveness is the killer of the people. We push. If your child is a little bit intelligent, we push them to become so good and become top of the class, And we teach them a psychology as if they don't get in the top 10, they're not good enough. They almost indirectly feel that way. And if that kind of pressure comes from others, and then a lot of societies are very, very civil, like in Japan or Korea, some of the East Asian countries, there's very hardly any violence. But the number of people committing suicide in those societies is just higher than many places. Because the competition to perform, and get high marks to get to the uni, which is very hard to get, and there are not many places around, so most of them try to send overseas, So parents got a huge pressure to send kids to overseas because their own country doesn't have enough seats. And those who afford to send overseas are not necessarily children are extraordinarily smart, but parents work so hard until they're stressed out and they're basically violating to each other. So for the sake of materialism, they basically are stressing their life, and they also expect the child to reward them later by performing extraordinarily well, which is a big pressure. They've got a lot of overseas students. They live on instant noodle and library most of the time, because their parents has taken $70,000 loan, and every year they have to send that. So much pressure, so much materialistic pressure, how good they want to be, otherwise they wouldn't be independent and free, and they would be burdened. And because of this materialistic drive, wherever the developed country people are, there are more suicides. If there are suicides in third world countries, it's completely different causes. You know, there are always unfortunate causes, one or two, but they are because they lost their loved ones, or they got abandoned, or they lost the job, or they have a huge fallout with a place or situation they worked so many years, and the whole world collapsed, and then some people think that it's all their fault, but there are very exceptional cases like that. There always will be some form of, some kind of, I would say, people taking their own lives, no matter what we do. But quite a lot of the extraordinary cases of youth suicide, which is unheard in all societies. Or youth suicide are only found in developed countries. And where parents are too busy, have no time, no time for the kids, too busy with making money, and there's no real actual time. When they have time, they really stress out. And because of that, the pressure to the kids for them to perform so much is so strong, and they have hardly any quality time that they can call love or care or togetherness, to have a good conversation. So generally, we're not just about always how to perform well and become good and be the top. That kind of pressure in materialistic society seem to be very symptomatic causes of the high youth suicide in developed countries. In third world countries, youth suicide is not found. Child labor is found, but nobody committing suicide. so they rather make a living than do the dying. That's quite interesting, yeah. You know, we think that there shouldn't be child labor in some countries, but when you look at it, you know, they have no better, they're the only ones who can earn a living, to the ailing parents who are sick or old and in hospital, but at least these children are not abused, they're at least doing some job and earning money. At least they're not on the other scale of the world where they're trying to commit suicide because they got so much money or so much pressure to make money. So it's very interesting to see how social pressure as a collective social, psychology, or makes people to think what we should implant a kind of attitudes in the mind of the young. When they're made to feel they have to be individually responsible, they have to be freedom, they have to have their own freedom, they have to have their own things, they shouldn't be a burden to the loved ones. And of course, when they think they're not able to do it, they haven't got a job for a while, and they're starting to feel bad, they think they're a bit of a burden to the parents. And parents also expect them to pay rent sometimes. Oh, that's a quite interesting one. Yes, they couldn't find a proper job, and yet they're not quite they're not quite able to find an easy job, and because of that they can't find a place on their own. At the family home, there's a spare room. And they're thought to be like a taboo, or not that bit of burden to on us, or maybe spoiling them or whatever. This kind of funny idea that if we allow them to come back without lifting the weight, we are spoiling them or something, you know. It's rather you spoil your kid than make them feel stressed. I think, don't you want to spoil your kids then rather than make them feel miserable? I would rather spoil. Whatever you have, you share. Unconditionally give them, rather than make them feel they are a bit of a burden to you or to the society, and then make them feel yet again, competitively trying to perform in a very aggressive, materialistic world out there, quite zero tolerance place, and world is very uncompromising. If that's the kind of environment we put pressure each other, you can see that kind of dependent origination is where is this suicide coming from? What are the distant social causes? What are the each society, social unit can do to minimize these indirect causes that actually affects the morale, confidence, and self-worth, and purposefulness for them to live. When people lose hope and confidence, and they're good for anything, they're made to feel the opposite. They don't feel like too much suffering. You know? So rather they end the suffering, that they at least know will not. They think they won't be suffering after death, you know, because they all say rest in peace, you know. They think when they die they will rest in peace and there is no consequences of committing suicide. In Buddhism, taking any life is the heaviest misdeeds you can perform. You know? And taking any life. The chances and time when we do take life is usually done under a very extreme negative state of mind. One is very angry, or one is very, very extreme under the influence of alcohol or drug, or one thinks it's fun, or one is a good shooter or aimer. And one is great to be able to shoot straight on the eye of the bird. And one thing it's some kind of skill. You know? Well, shooting a duck may be licensable, because at least ducks have no say. But karma, the consequences of killing duck or killing, even fish, whatever, just for sake of recreation or enjoyment, or because you got two friends who really want you to go on the fishing, you know, like he's got a brand new boat, you know, it's so enticing. You know? You have no idea, all of a sudden you're killing someone's mum. It might be fish, but it's still somebody's mum. When we talk about causes of violent death, you know, there are some kind of repetitive, karmic vicious cycle that turns back. So any form of ending the life of any life is almost like bringing hell on that life. If you make someone's life to bring on hell by killing their life in violent death, you know, no death is non-violent when you're causing the death, either by poisoning or shooting or suffocating or trapping or whatever you do, it's a violent death. It's not a peaceful death. And so usually a person performs killing, any form of killing, under when their mind is extremely negative, very, very aggressive, very, very negative or ignorant. Most killings are done ignorantly because they think shooting is because they think he's a good marksman. He thinks he's a good marksman, but wait until he gets marked. There's a consequence of that. If you're a marksman this time, next time you will be the marked. So killings out of ignorance is like that. And some people sacrifice animals in worshipping God or deities in very funny animistic religious cults. In various parts of the world, they slaughter the chicken and strew the blood on some statues or like that, thinking they're appeasing, propitiating the gods and that kind of thing. Those are definitely the ignorance. They're killing out of ignorance. They think their God needs hot blood of animals or something, you know. So it's obviously erroneous path. Wrong. It's not a path of peace. It's not a path of kindness. You know, how can you gain salvation or peace when you're causing death, violent death in helpless animals? So some people engage in killing out of ignorance, others kill out of desire. So desire for skin or bone or flesh or fins or whatever the things people kill them indirectly or directly, killing out of desire. And some kill out of hatred, a lot of violence, fightings. These are all usually killing out of anger and aggression, jealousy, and you name it, all the destructive emotions involved in causing the death of somebody else. So what is distinctive about voluntarily ending one's own life? Of course, assisted mercy killing, what we are talking about these days in Australia, people who have no chance for survival, and therefore their chances of having a quality life to live is no longer there by both the individual themselves and loved ones, all as an informed way make a decision to take some maybe lethal drugs to cause the death, what they may call euthanasia, you know. So euthanizing someone is often debated with often very, very disagreeing parties. There's hardly any two person agrees about it because everybody holds a view on why? Because any form of taking one's life, taking anybody's life is almost anti-life. But because of the sophistication and modern medicine and its miracle has taught us the skills to artificially support life that could have ended 2 years ago, not just the next two months, you know. But when the quality of artificially supported life does not have any wonderful returns and only more pain and more sadness, so on. Of course, then people who have the luxury of having life support machines happening for the last 2 years, then realize it's no value, and then of course have to come to a conclusion. Maybe we don't need to put this medicine anymore, or maybe just increase the drug, and then that'll the end of it. So we're reaching to that. Even that, why is it becoming very, very? While it's called mercy killing, the intention of the person who wanted to be euthanized is also due out of compassion because they themselves is suffering more under that treatment. And also they don't want their ailing friends and loved ones to go through this long process of try to support a life that's really not there, like a vegetable. So it's called mercy because the intention with which all parties concerned, whether the government approves it or not, if it's ethically, if it's legally accepted, those who are involved definitely are. Intention is completely compassion, isn't it? So that's why even why topical and why controversial it is, because it's all about ending a life, even in the best possible intention and a means as a last resort. Now, if anyone who wanted to end their own life, not by natural cause of death, but because they're unhappy, because they're lonely, because they're made to feel very bad, or kind of a cause of shame to their family, because they would not treat them as one, because they think they are ashamed to the family. When they're treated like that, yeah, anyone feels it will be, maybe they have mercy euthanizing, committing suicide. They don't want their family to suffer because he brings shame to them. And they actually tell him that he is. When he's alive, they actually don't hesitate. They almost treat him as if he is ashamed. And a person who actually goes and maybe ends his life actually wanted to be mercifully kill himself so that his loved one doesn't have to go there. So intention of some people who commit suicide may not be aggressive, may not be desire, may not be ignorance. Just out of true compassion, they just don't want their loved one to suffer any more than they have let them down in the past. So from that point of view, you can see people who commit suicide with that kind of noblest of all intention, of course, because if they're allowed to be natural, they will still live, because people don't just die when they want to die. They still got what we call karma and merit and lifespan, like oil and the wick and the container. when the oil and the wick and the container is there, then the lamp will continue to burn. You know? The lamp can't say, I will finish now, unless someone go and put it off. The lamp will keep burning, you know. Lamp will keep burning because there's still oil there. There's a wick is strong, and there's no big storm or wind blowing it, and so it will continue to burn. Whereas a lamp that is naturally allowed to burn until the wick and the fuel and everything run out will be naturally goes off, isn't it? So when one wants to either sort of put the flame out, so that whatever left over of the oil and the wick is there will be not utilized for whatever it's worth, for whatever it's worth. Because we came here when we were born to do time, you know. However good it is, we don't know, but if we did the time well, you know, we're actually exhausting karma. Whatever difficulties and pain we have caused to others, if we suffer through these life difficulties and humbly, we are actually exhausting the bad consequences of bad we perform. And we may have been able to do good in this life. Most people are trying to do good every time they get up and put the belt on and tie on and put the shoulder bags and go off the road. They try to do something good to the community. Try to contribute to the society. What they would make a difference if they're not there. It is left unattended. So everybody has a reason to live, not because they not just for them, because they have others who they have to be responsible for. So you can see that psychology, the people who are committing suicide, they don't have such purpose left. They have no one they think they can work for or do for, because everybody makes them feel that they're non-performer. So who's making them to feel that? Every one of us who are near and dear circle must have made him or feel, and not help him to be supported, not help him to console, not help him to be apologize, forgiven, or reconciled, or mediate. When we are not doing that, you know, often of course, the people try to prevent suicide of people who have attempted a few. They often give advices as if their life has a lot of good reason to live. You know. It's only this last time they're hearing this. All of a sudden, belatedly, somebody's saying they got some good to offer. Yet in every walk of their life, they haven't received any such compliments. Why is it not? Because people are very mean and very selfish. They don't realize how we speak to each other may affect their morale, may affect their confidence, may affect their hope, may affect their performance, and may even affect their motivation to live. And some people even say to each other, I wish you did. Some people may say themselves, I wish I was dead, because others tell, I wish you dead. And those wills are very cursing, very, very negative, very, very, very devastatingly harmful. But if you happen to hear somebody say that, it's wow, that's like an arrow that will get stuck in the heart for a long time and not being able to remove it. Harsh words are not weapon, but sharpest ones, and that stays longest, causing the injury. Sigla, Swenjamita, meaning Taparpu in Tibetan. He says, even the words are not weapons, it is the one that pierces through, penetrates the heart of the people, and breaks them into pieces. So therefore, to prevent that kind of hurting other people, one needs to be mindful how we, as every member of society, needs to mind our language and try to say the exact opposite. If not, just pause. I say this, pause for a cause. Should I say this? No, this is not going to get in. This is going to go straight in their heart and break them into pieces. I will not say this over such an issue. When one is able to think like that, and imagine that this is what we're talking about. how we can prevent a catastrophe or violence and abuse and people committing suicide, is by how we can be more kind towards each other. You know, not just someone who's vulnerable, but just every day. Just make that as a motto, how to live. I'll be kind, no matter what. And not try to be right, and then try to stone the wrong. That's what causes all these damages. All this intolerance from the parents, from the brothers, from the in-laws and so on towards each other. It's quite human to sometimes lose your temper and say not so kind words, bad conversation. But it's even more humane to say it quickly and apologize. It's really, you wouldn't believe how much friendship that builds. Otherwise, whatever years of friendship, it's got destroyed by instantly, and it's never irreparable. Because neither of them, due to their egotistical mind, would come and acknowledge that that was their fault. If everyone did not have that did not take that responsibility, you can see how it is societally affecting. The ripple effect of the carelessness of everybody is actually affecting, and therefore everybody feel very, very insecure, unloved or unrespected. So, practicing kindness is the best prevention of all kinds of problems, as well as to heal past problems. You know, practicing kindness doesn't mean just being able to always prevent future problems. Even there is a little bit of tension between us and somebody. If we know that we said that, we did that, that's what they're upset, even we don't know what the hell they are really angry about, but at least try to go and reconnect and reconcile and tell them, I love you, what is the matter, please tell me, I'm willing to make peace with you. When you see any sign or omen of a little bit of tension between the immediate circles, if you do that, it will go a long way. You know, we're talking about how to make someone feel tenderly loved and cared. They call it TLC. You know, it's loving kindness. You know, doing small things to tell that you love them and you don't really mean to say that. And if they heard that you didn't mean to say that, they would believe you. But they didn't hear that at all. They also almost feel as they still need to be said more if they're not careful. then they almost like they have always been put one arrow in the heart, they are wanting to bring out the hammer and hit it furthermore. How much self-killing we need? So we're talking about kindness. Opposite of kindness is violence. Verbal violence is more cause of unhappiness and depression and sadness. And then people want to avoid you. They want to rather go somewhere they don't see you. They haven't seen their father for years because father has been too stupid to say those words and never actually apologize, or vice versa. And as a result of that, they become estranged. And they both miss each other. And over the reason why which one of them lost the goodness to say is so trivial. Yet the friendship between them is a blood relationships. There's a blood children. Maybe that's the problem, is bloody relatives. Because maybe they're due to blood relation, that's the problem, is it? Why is it so easy, so difficult to repair damages? But how it's so easy to make damages unconsciously, but fixing it requires consciously acknowledging and kneeling before. And instead of saying kneels before someone and tell that you love them when you want them for you, but when they really are turning their back to you with angry, how can you make peace? They say, give peace a chance. How to give peace a chance? you know? Peace hasn't been given a chance. If we give it a chance, peace works. Amazing thing is, peace solves the problem. And it looks quite obvious. There wasn't a big problem, but the humanity was being forgotten and neglected. They don't realize this two persons bad relationship is having a ripple effect to the rest of the others. How poisonous that it is. So one has to see. Yes, some people are depressed not because of their own fault, but how their own two very loved ones are like an enemy to each other. Yet the reason why they are crooked at each other is so small. And if someone with a calm-minded were to negotiate and mediate and help them to talk kindly to them, one of them need to give the peace a chance. The other one wouldn't refuse. Peace is this powerful. Peace is this powerful. The thing about that is most people are not predisposed to make peace. They're predisposed to make a revenge. They're waiting to ambush. See, that's the problem. Problem is they're not in a predisposition to make peace. They're waiting to strike again. So when you go to make peace, you've got to make promise not to say. And what only things to say that looks like, that is really love, that really is forgiveness, that really is apology, and doesn't look like another argument. You don't go there. If you're young and other family members, so you make that peace with someone in their life, it will touch them. They will find hope. They'll find confidence. They see other people in their own family do it. There is history of peace in that family. Now they don't talk about history of violence. Now they talk about history of suicide. They don't talk about history of estrangement of each other. History of peace and reconnection and reconciliation. Every one of us here can think of someone with whom, maybe it's not directly ours, but who you love very much, but they really crook at somebody, and as a result of which you're not happy for him or about their life. I'm sure we can make peace. This is what we're talking about. Because down the track, this thing may become a cause of someone's suicide. It is. It is happening. So kindness requires invention. You need to be innovative. You need to do something renewable, like refreshingly new. As you are growing, as you're living and you're truly alive, and you actually are have rediscovered your humanity. Your many years of suffering has taught you how to find a medicine to cure the suffering. Hate with love, and resentment with compassion, and blaming with forgiveness. If they saw that practice, they will say, oh, there's a history, there's an example of doing that in their community, yeah? We are not talking about turning to the church or religion if you don't want to, There's a lot of humane way of reconciling with adults, There are lots of ways of doing it. Some people might think they should do some kind of ceremony that is marking a big breakthrough from there with the witness of everybody and solve somebody. But you don't need to. You've got to be honestly doing that with your own heart and make a little promise. And definitely talk to someone who needs to hear you say that words. Otherwise, they don't want to say that too, therefore. They don't want to go and apologize. But you know that they only need that someone hopeful, someone optimizingly tell them that if you did this, you will have peace. I'll support you. If you are able to do that, in a small way, you will all be busy, I tell you. You will all be busy to do some work, real building human work, building human work, building up the community, building up the real person's morale and love and worth and respect. You know? You will find all else is completely easy once that fundamental egotistical arguments are reconciled with and done away with it. Everything else is completely negotiable. So all the arguments over which we were so mean and very nasty to each other, so big distraction. Because, we have to be one pointed to the humanity and the well-being of each other. And if somebody's down, we're going to support them. We don't make them feel as they're not like others, they're failing themselves, they're a bit of a burden, or they're like that again. Oh, you will never do it right. Gosh, where do I get someone like you? How the hell, where do I get someone like you in my life? And almost people think that we should get someone else instead of them. Just imagine, what would they feel if you said that? Yet people unashamedly say that quite a lot of time without thinking it has consequences to their little ears. You would no idea how demoralized people are when somebody spoke to them. Lots of people are depressed because they haven't been spoken with love and respect and kindness. They've been spoken with disrespect and total contempt and looked down and as if they're not worthy. This kind of disregard is like the person is not useful. He has nothing good to regard of themselves. They even feel it's their fault. Because they're a little bit younger or they're a little bit junior or whatever, and they don't have the confidence to stand up with themselves and to do otherwise. And quite a lot of them are putting up this, what they call poisonous tolerance. They've been tolerating, poisonously, thinking it's their fault. Look at that, when they will speak to me like that. Maybe I'm like that. I will never get it right, because that's what they think of me. And because we never tell them good remarks, what they're good at, other things. It's really good to recognize the things things they do without pleasing the rest of the world. Because their world is us, and if this is our commentary matters to them. And what they hear from us is very negative, very condescending, and they don't have much another world. They think that outside the world is pretty much similar. It's even more competitive because they say don't talk to the stranger these days. And it looks like people live in cities, but they actually don't know anybody. And as a result of this negative hostility created unconsciously, I must say. So what we're talking about is practicing kindness is conscious effort. Conscious, humane effort. And whether it's physical things we do, whether it's the actual body language, whether it's the words we use, what tone we use, even if we need to really say something, but we don't quite say it like that, But say it very beautifully and paraphrase it so that they actually get the point, but you came in a nice way, a very loving way, that you were really supporting them, and invariably they got to exactly what you meant to say, but without hurting their morale or confidence or their self-worth, because otherwise they only assess themselves about how people treat them, and they think that's them. They think they're like that. In teachings of Buddha, that when a person is blamed by somebody, very few people have the moral authority to think it's very kind of them giving me a very critical remark. I need this. Very few people will think like that. Only very few. I think 0.1% myself. That's very good. Thank you, Mom. That's really your negative remarks so useful. It will boost my morale down the track, even though very unpleasant for my little ear today. But I'll really take this as a great blessing, Mom. Thank you very much. Very few people. Very few people. In the teaching, it says we should treat like that. We should receive like that. Yeah, that's actually really in a good space. and very well tuned. And then some days we might think, oh, I should think like that. And even if people are really so negative about me, you should think this is just coming back of all your bad mouthing you practiced in the past existence to other people. Now they're just coming back. So if I holistically accept it and tolerantly, this will destroy all my past wrongdoings as well as their negative mouthing will also be exhausted. So it will be very useful. Very few has the ability to think like that. The teaching says that we should think like that. It suggests that there will be a lot of people who are unconscious. What they're saying is really harmful and hurtful to you. Therefore, teaching says, just in case people do speak like that, but don't think that what they're saying is all your fault. But think what they're saying is really useful for you to grow, so that maybe I may have said similar things to other people, being unconsciously like this. Maybe the result is not right thing now. If I don't retaliate with this, and then I will at least help them to exhaust their negative feeling, they're painting it out. And if I don't retaliate, I'm not refueling them, and may this exhaust all our bad encounters before, and may he be well and peaceful. Now that is actually, the teaching teaches us to think like that. This suggests that we will be exposed to people who are not conscientious and mindful, and so if we do that, then we can prevent the distant cause of suicide. Because even though we become exposed to such negative words, but we are not treating them as a cause of self-loathing or low self-esteem or thinking I have nothing worth. They think, oh, yeah, I have the fitness of an altruistic mind to withstand, to take this. See, it's opposite of low self-esteem. It's really actually developing your own courage, not intimidated by what you become exposed to. And so, you can personally, by practicing teaching, you can personally stop those become cause of demoralizing and self-deprecation or feeling that they don't love you or they don't respect you. You don't think like that. Actually, this person is my loved one. He can say this. Maybe my dad has a point. He's got a lot of stress, poor man. He works so hard and he's got millions of stress than I can imagine. And if he can't vent out his unpleasant feeling to me, then what am I for? Now, how many can think like that? It's possible, It's possible. When you have the teaching, you can think like that. Then even if your dad didn't hear these teachings, even if your dad does his normal thing, and then we will be tolerant to him. We will forgive him. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm sure that'll help the dad and everybody. And from that point of view, of course, when you have the teachings like that, of course, then you're not only preventing other people's cause of self depression and sadness and loneliness, but actually you're preventing yourself from becoming like that. Even this kind of immediate cause of provocations are there. I mean, who doesn't get exposed to difficult people in their life? You wouldn't believe most families are very identical, if not worse. So don't be so unkind about your family. You just go and try the next door next for a few weeks. You might be surprised how gentle your mob is. So don't be so critical of those people in the family. These are brought by karma of the past lives. Amazing, what did they do to each other to be in that life, to share that thing together? They must have a lot of prayers or plannings to do to be there. So we have to be gentle with each other, particularly when somebody is not with themselves. Somebody really showing their stress, showing their weakness, showing their lacking balance. That's the time we have to really support them and be patient. And then they will not feel blaming themselves as they're going to fail the family. even though they might be financially going down, but they have this beautiful supportive family. Now, if people assess their family's worth with money, that's the problem. If people have people for each other, that's the most valuable one, you know. But what's the point of hurting people if they are not tenderly supportive when the other one is a little down? And even if they made a huge mistake, but still unconditionally forgive them and make them feel as you're right behind them, support them. When you do that, they will never feel depressive. They will never feel they're alone. They will never feel forgotten or unwanted. And they know they're really proud that they have you. They may have lost the business. They may have gone business was bankrupt, but they still have love. When the society is exchanging love with money, that's where all the problem starts. Then they put priority, more money, who bring more money type of thing, but actual care and concern, supporting each other is completely forgotten. That's where the young ones get neglected. The adults have no time. They drop the kids 6 in the morning, and they barely get there to pick them kids at 6 in the evening. And then by that time, they're both so exhausted and tired. And most of the hard work they did work is completely unnecessary. You know? They could definitely moderate work life and a real family life. You know, when there is a kind of immoderation in lack of balance, that causes stress in everyone, and they're not with themselves. Then the parents themselves are to cope with stress. They're using alcohol, and they can't even rest the evening without taking a couple of drinks, and then a couple of drinks next, and that alcoholism looks quite enjoyable on the lips, you know, and the lips is very enjoyable. But once it goes down, it might have other ideas. It completely makes you lose your sanity, if there is any sanity when before of drinking any, you know. And drink and drive, they call it. Yeah, drink and father. Yeah, drink and mother. Yes. It's hurt. It's really, really harmful. It destroys families. The person actually forgets his responsibility. He just becomes even more courageously charged with this fluid in their body, and they just completely lose themselves, intoxicated, basically. You wouldn't believe how many of the broken families, violence, where children are committing suicide, are to do with alcoholism. The alcoholism is not due to alcohol, it's because of materialism. Wanting too much, try to pull in 6-digit or more income a year. The less than that is not good enough. They put their value on the numbers, not actually quality of time they have spent time, because they're so pressurized to make so much a living, and they don't actually have time to be themselves and a good self. And then they try to distress by alcohol, and in the meantime they neglect quite loving and caring and actually mending the fences with people in their lives, and then people feel ignored. And when they do meet them, they only hear very, very sort of negative remarks, and therefore the dysfunctionality and brokenness comes from that. If one becomes a little bit more realistic in terms of being kind towards each other, and then balance the material responsibility as well as emotional responsibility to each other, then of course the gentleness that people are showing towards each other and peace they give a chance regularly, not just occasionally, regularly. Just even if there was a little exchange, say in the morning, but just try to get it reconciled before going to bed. Just make a little promise as a life kind of philosophy that you don't go to bed without forgiving and apologizing, reconciling with each other. If others get to see that, they will see that as that is a good way to live, and then the damage are erased. Firstly, damage will be prevented. Even if there is a small damage, it will be quickly mended. And as a result of that, they have a lot of understanding between each other. Even if they do show a little bit each other's weakness, they also know each other's strength. But they only show each other's weakness, never show any strength. Of course they feel hopeless. So everybody must understand the stress and cause of stress, how they are all interdependent. And likewise, anything we can prevent stress, anything we can mend the fences along with the people and society at large, then the effect of that one unit of society, one unit of a family will affect when 2 persons, 3 persons go to different places, they also will affect that community where they go to. They will talk of tolerance, how to make peace. They will not talk about taking sides and help each other to destroy the other. This is what this negative society does, always try to denounce somebody, throw stones at them, as if they have no fault at all themselves. And when we become so intolerant and so negative and critical, this creates a very destructive behavior. People think it's okay. And unfortunately, those who decide to take their life are often motivated by frustration. They just want to find a way, if possible, to end suffering. They run out of avenues to end the suffering when they don't have any help coming, constructive help, constructive intellectual and cognitive awareness. One has to almost know one's own mind to not predispose taking anybody's life. Taking one's own life is often suspected as taken in anger or taken in aggression and guilt and resentment and therefore frustration. And anyone who does take their life under any of those negative destructive emotions, it has a huge consequences, not only to themselves. Maybe they don't believe next life. That's probably one of the thing people think that then that will be the end of it, and then they don't have to face any consequences. But they don't. Some of them, even vindictively, they wanted to kill themselves so that everybody feels guilty, and almost like that's their way of revenging, taking revenge, unfortunately. And they are often proven true. It makes everybody feel guilty. Then they all feel, I shouldn't have said this, I shouldn't have done that. So all this, what I've been saying before, are preventable. If you prevent that, yes. Even though there are I'm not saying there's no triggers for people to say the bad words and have bad exchanges, but one just practice peace. If I say this, he's already too much upset. If I say this, he's already failing in his duties, task. If I say this, it will demoralize him. Now how am I going to support him? You see what I mean? That's the pause for a cause. When you do that, and then you make them feel, it doesn't really matter. That's not the end of the world. You still have me. It's so important too. Because there were times we didn't have to have any degrees. And people had always enough to eat. Why do you have to be put so much pressure that you have to be like everyone? When people go back to village campaign, go back to the simple way of living, and that's less stressful. And this alternative to that, it still exists, You really know, even in Australia, it's never too late, When people try to live everybody in a little one-bedroom units and then feeling lonely, and everybody has a gas bill, everybody got an electricity bill, everybody got a water bill, everybody have a connection fee, everybody got you can see the add to their stress. Even 3 or 4 family members live harmoniously with love and respect and care. Oh, it's so much better, cozy, and then real understanding. This kind of humanity and love is is the cause of peace and happiness, not money, not independence. Independent usually becomes loneliness. How about that? Yeah, freedom becomes cause of irresponsibility. Yeah, how about that? So to have someone to care for, to have someone to do things for and to each other is very good. So that's why lots of people are, they all want to be like somebody, but they don't realize how miserable they are when they try to live like that. And they try to copy some forms of idols or models in their life. They want to be like that. They don't realize how difficult and violent and abusive they are to their body by living that way. So we are a member of society. Every person in a society has to take, I would say, a conscientious choice what we can do within our circle of units of people, that we can starting to make a little, start to make a positive influence to each other, how to start making peace. We're not talking about extreme problems. Even the small cracks appear. It's good to patch them, even when it's small, without letting it to become big crack. Have them mended quickly before it's like that. And practice tolerance, practice forgiveness, apologize each other, and understand each other. They really didn't mean like that. They are trying their best, and believe they are. Then we wouldn't be saying those words or those things where we express quite unconsciously. We become more thoughtful. Oh, there are consequences if I say this to him. Maybe you just delay our response. Very good. Delay response is usually patience. And after you think, I'm glad I didn't respond that time, in that state of mind. You see? That is peace. Sometimes peace means no response, but deep down, intentionally loving kindness is there. Out of loving kindness, you didn't respond, which means you didn't react, which means you didn't overreact. You didn't know it. You knew it was not safe for you to say anything. So it's better to have not much to say. People might think you're ignoring, but when your intention is not, they know it's not. When somebody doesn't react to you, even though you're a little bit disturbed, they love you. Therefore, they are practicing peace. You've got to mean it well, and it will have positive effect. They're happy that you didn't react. And then they will be the one who call you, I'm sorry, you wouldn't believe. You don't need to solicit apology from others when you wish them well. And when you didn't react out of goodwill, you wouldn't believe the benefit, the medicine of that will empower them to hear what they were saying that was inappropriate. Now, we don't even have to say they said that. We don't want to say that. It's bad enough they say it once. If he didn't say much, they probably will hear it. Not to make them feel guilty, of course. Make them feel like wanting to make peace. Peace can only be made if there's a bit of a truce. That's what they call truce. When people use truce to ambush each other again, that's not a truce. That's called recharging. That's trying to ambush each other more, We're talking about peace. Trying to de-escalate the problem. And it is good because you know it's much better that you did that. You've got to mean it well from your heart. Part of that is really, it's better than prayer, I'm telling you. For prayer, you have to go early in the morning on Sunday to the church, This one you can do wherever you are. Wherever you are. You just sit there and talk to yourself heedfully and heartfully and hear that. And you should mean that. There's a lot of people who haven't got that control in themselves. Do it for them. Because you can affect people. You know, if when you mean it very well, your intention has a very powerful, I would say, ripple effect. You've got to be inclusive. There are a lot of many dads or moms or brothers or so on who just didn't want to say that, but they just didn't have any avenue to control themselves. Within minutes, they're really in tears that they said that, and they know the other one may be hurt, and yet they don't have the wisdom to go and apologize. They just do that. They think it's their fault, you know. They're the one who instigated me. You're the one who made me say that. That kind of attitude. Instead of thinking, no, in spite of that, I shouldn't have said that. It's not what they said that should make us to justify the say. It's we are the one who should decide, does that warrant us to say this? And when you see the big picture, no, of course not. And then you don't. And that's called peace. Peace usually means absence of aggression, and reaction, and overreaction, and retaliation, and suffer the little pain that there is to tolerate that. And it's good suffering, I tell you, it's a good suffering, useful suffering. This suffering will stop sufferings. It's called patience. Patience is a suffering that actually stops future sufferings. You know? Zero tolerance doesn't tolerate anything now, but it will prove a long trail of suffering in the future. That's what zero tolerance does. Amazing. It's called suffering is the cause of compassion, if you understand it. Compassion is not an independent virtue. It's an understanding to embrace the sufferer as if they have you to help them to cope with. It's not to prove who's right and who's wrong. If someone cares who's suffering, it's compassion. It's not about right or wrong. This duality is not entertained in Buddhism. Middle way is. The middle way means finding a way, alternative to fight or flee. Not to fight with it, not flee from it, but find a way from having to freedom from either of these two. That is peace. That is that you take on the suffering now. That's already there, you know. You can't. That's already there. You might as well be useful. And to prevent it from snowballing into the next. So you have to have a little bit of insight, isn't it? You have to see the impermanence of suffering. You know, when you have compassion, you made the suffering useful it prevented from escalating. And what it did do, it increased your compassion. And you increase, as a result of increasing compassion, it's not about you anymore. It's who has more suffering than you. You know? Then it's a pleasure. They say. Then it's a pleasure when you're willing to suffer for the loved one. It's a pleasure, they say. See? When does suffering become pleasure? When you have compassion. You rather take on yourself than them. So, of course, that revives the person who's nearly dead. People will live long if they practice kindness. It's like the lamp, it would be interrupted by the wind or somebody spilling the oil. It will burn until all the wick and all the oil and everything is utilized. And we are always trying to do that. We're buying life insurance. We're buying home content insurance. We're not buying body contents insurance, which is the mind. We have to have a mind insurance policy, I think. Mind insurance policy. Sounds very un-Buddhist. But it is. It's practicing peace is ensuring the mind, the happiness of the spirit and mind. Yeah. First First people thought they can buy the building insurance, and then they go buy the insurance. They said, no, do you want to buy furniture and home country? Oh, you have to do that. Oh, your home country insurance. Then after that, they said, you want to buy life insurance? Oh, the life insurance. Nobody says mine insurance. So we're talking about that here, how to prevent the catastrophe that we create to ensure all the three, and ignoring the real well-being of the spirit. Of course, we do that, and the person may have a house, may have a boat, may even have an aeroplane, may have several nice cars, have several nice houses, but still he doesn't feel worthy. So what's that? All those are insured, remember? You should have a peace of mind, they say. There's no peace of mind. Even though they are all insured, still there's no peace of mind. Because his mind is filled with anger and selfishness and grievances, and then what kind of insurance is going to give peace of mind? So in Buddhism, it's a refuge. Refuge in the teachings of the Buddha. You completely believe and practice and test the teachings, verifiability by your own cognitive, mental, analytical, rational, logical, and pragmatic way to use. And in this way we can promote the kindness is the highest virtue. And it can prevent not only suicide, but anybody hurting from any part. And I'm sure our world deserves its citizens to take some responsibility to promote peace and a little bit scale down this materialism and then create stress to the extent of forgetting how to love, how to forgive, how to prevent hurt, how to prevent suicide. And this is the practice of kindness. Even meditate. Even you take many disciplines, many vows. For what? If you're not kind. Even you give up drinking alcohol or whatever. What's the right for if you're not kind? You know? Even you do many hours of sitting and chanting and praying. So what if you're not kind? So kindness is the most important medicine to prevent hurt from escalating, let alone developing to the cause of committing suicide. So I'm sure these thoughts are in your heart. I'm sure that's what you came for, because it's not an interesting topic to most people to go to listen to somebody, and then somebody even think you should talk about it. I'm not an expert in any kind of mental health situation, but as a disciple of the Buddha, and the teaching that which we truly believe in peace and tolerance and kindness to each other. Every unit of society and members have the responsibility to be kind towards each other and support those who may be a little bit different and with extraordinary care. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rinpoche, for all those words of wisdom. I think you've given us all a lot to think about and reflect on, and certainly a lot of homework to do, so thank you. And just as I mentioned before, if you are interested in coming along to any of our other events, please join our email list if you're not already on it. The girls over there can take your email address. Rinpoche teaches Tuesday evenings at our centre in Everett. Last week he started an 8-week course in calm abiding meditation at 6 o'clock. So you can join that tomorrow, this week if you'd like to, and at 7:30 it's a Buddhist teachings course, and that's more about these kind of teachings from the Buddha. So thanks everyone for coming, and please feel free to stay around and have a chat. Thanks so much.